So welcome everybody to the 7th class in the personalized meditation training. This is the first pre-recorded class, and I hope this will make for better sound quality and better image quality also. Actually, resolution can be a lot higher, and well, some of you may know my jhana videos, which I made with some bookshelf behind me. And I made those actually during a time when I was in quarantine many years ago, because I was one of the first people in Belgium to attract the Mexican flu. So I had to be quarantined and didn't know what to do, how to spend the time. So once I'm more or less recovered from the fever and everything, I recorded those 4 jhana classes. So I'm actually quite used to talking to the camera. It's a little different now that I know that you are not there in the background, watching, hearing, listening, but you will be, so just a matter of time perspective. And afterwards we will meet again for the Q&A session, so then you will have the ability to ask some questions, and that session will also remain available for anybody who wants to see it later as a separate video file. So anyhow, thanks for being there, thanks for watching, thanks also for your donations, without which this is really not possible. And we've been going through quite some subjects already: our meditation intention, our different ways of relaxing the body, the senses, the breath. And we've been looking at life also, how to organize life, what to do, when, so that life becomes supportive of meditation, and meditation also really gets a place there, so that life can itself then also be supported by the meditation, and you get a kind of interaction between life and meditation, which is very fruitful. And actually today we are a little bit still on the same subject, with the general do's and don'ts in life in relation to meditation, the famous Yamas and Niyamas of Ashtanga Yoga. But this is not so much a matter of when we do what, but rather what to avoid, because it's really not very supportive of meditation. And then what kind of practices we can, if we have the time, integrate in our life, because they may also make our meditation more easy. So Yama is known generally as the Lord of Death in the Hindu pantheon, and the Yamas thus are things that we should kill, we should stop. And on the other hand, the Niyamas are the opposite of the Yamas, so they are things which we should bring alive in our lives, that we should try to do. The most common misunderstanding about these Yamas and Niyamas is that people see them as a kind of a morality. You shouldn't do this, but you should do that. No, really, we have to understand that this is not at all about morality. Some of these subjects, they have a moral aspect, you can say, but to try to stop doing certain things, to try to do certain things, is not a matter of being a good or a bad person. It is really very personal. It depends what is your situation, it depends what kind of responsibilities you have, how much time you have, and all these things. So it should not be seen as a morality, and anyhow also morality is always personal. That's maybe a little bit a long story to now go into. I have a class called Yoga Dharma, which talks specifically about that subject. But we must see these yamas and niyamas as matters of meditation technology. There are very practical reasons why practicing yama and niyama will help you in your meditation, and that's really all what this is about. So if you feel that you have a hard time to live up to these lofty ideals, don't take it personal. Don't feel bad about it. Everybody has to decide for themselves, and in some things we just also have to grow. And we have to fully understand yamas and niyamas as two parts of an 8-part system of the 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, which are again helping each other. And so when we are evolving in our meditation, achieving more deep meditation, then definitely this will help us to also more easily, I would say, practice the yamas and niyamas. And that will then in turn help our meditation. So we have to see it as a whole system and not become impatient, not start expecting things from ourselves for which we are not ready, not start disliking ourselves for not being ready. You are a work in progress. This will grow. So Yama and Niyama are part of Ashtanga Yoga, and another common misunderstanding is to see Ashtanga Yoga as a kind of yoga tradition, which it is, but which also it is not, because truly Ashtanga Yoga, these 8 steps or limbs, they are a universal description of what yoga is about and how yoga functions, which can be applied to any kind of yoga tradition, which will then maybe put more attention into one part and less attention into another part, but which cannot escape these 8 parts, because these 8 parts are very much related to who we are and how we are made, you could say, what different parts of us are there. We all breathe, so how can you exclude any kind of breathing from practice? Always something needs to be done there to make sure the breath is supportive of the meditation. So these 8 steps were brought forward by Patanjali around 200 BC, they believe, but it could be also quite a bit older. It then led later, around 8th century, to the development of what is called Raja Yoga, which is actually the same thing, but in a little bit more different fashion of the times, I would say. And then much later, quite recently, also something was developed called Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, which is more focused on asana, anyhow, pranayama also, but less on meditation and more a kind of yoga flow. So a little bit confusion is there, but so when I say Ashtanga Yoga, I'm really talking about the original Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali, and the beautiful description of that system which he has given us in his Yoga Sutras, based on the yogic tradition, of course, based also on Samkhya, which you could see as the more philosophical tradition of India. And he has brought those two beautifully together in a very clear way. And so certainly also yamas and niyamas there are influenced by this Samkhya philosophy, which is a philosophy based on unity, based on understanding the self and cosmic consciousness in a very clear way, and in that way being able to say what can suit meditation or what does not suit meditation, what are these yamas and niyamas, and how we apply these really depends on our situation, depends, for example, very much on whether you are a householder with a job, with a house, with kids and all kinds of things to take care of, or whether you are more withdrawn from life as a monk or a sadhu. That makes a huge difference in how you will be able to approach these yamas and Niyamas. Like when we look at the Yamas, there are in Patanjali Yoga 5 Yamas described there. And for a sadhu in India, these are seen as quite absolute. Let's say truth, Satya, not telling any lies. This is for a sadhu a absolute promise that he is making, which as a householder might be a little more difficult, not impossible, but a little more difficult to do. So that we have to understand, and the aim of the yamas is to purify us, to purify our different bodies, the koshas, so that they become most suited to turn inside and keep us less attached to whatever there is outside. The first of the yamas is called AHIMSA. AHIMSA means non-violence, and it is meant in rather full fashion. It means non-violence in word, deed, and thought. So don't think any bad things about anybody, don't use any bad words to anybody, and don't hit them. So this is well known actually, non-violence, because of Mahatma Gandhi, who kind of launched this idea of non-violent resistance and used it in a very effective way to finally get the British out of India. So this story is well known and is a good study actually of the subject of Ahimsa, because it was definitely not always easy for Mahatma Gandhi to remain non-violent and to keep other people around him and in India generally of not reacting in a violent way towards the violence and the injustice that the British were executing upon the Indian people. So it's a very interesting story, so I certainly advise you to read about it, and in that way better understand what non-violence truly means. Now here especially also it is easy to misunderstand ahimsa as a kind of moral practice, like, you should not be angry, you should not think bad things about people, you should not say bad things to people, you should not defend yourself, let's say, in that way. But here this is totally not the idea. Ahimsa is something which protects you from violence, and in that way is very essential to any serious meditation practice. We have to see, when we are in deep meditation, we have no idea what's happening around us. We are at that moment totally defenseless. If somebody wants to harm us at that moment, we have no idea. We don't even know they are there. So they can hit us, they can kill us, whatever they want. It's possible. And nowadays we may feel quite secure in our houses, in our rooms, lock the door, But at times this was not so. Then people would meditate outside, or like if sadhus, they live in a hut, there's maybe not even a door and definitely not a good lock, So if you have still quarrels with people around you, then how can you truly feel safe to meditate and go inside? This is a very first important reason. And for those yogis who are meditating in nature often, in caves, in the forests, then also this non-violence must be developed to such a way that they do not even have to be afraid of the wild animals that are living there, of the snakes and the tigers that might harm them. And it is well known that some of these yogis have developed ahimsa to such an extent that also animals can feel it and will not attack, and will even like to be near such a person and become totally harmless and peaceful when they are with such a person. So that is really how ahimsa will truly protect you and make it feel totally safe to lose the contact to the outside world, to stop listening, to stop looking, to stop being aware of what is happening around you. And of course, we already discussed this a few times before. If you have quarrels with people, even if you can push the thoughts about it away during the phase of concentration, you will not be able to push them away when you are entering more deeper stages of meditation. Then these precisely are the thoughts that are going to disturb your meditation, that are going to bring you out of your deep meditation. So it is just very important not to have any anger in your heart if you want to go inside. And another reason is, of course, quite simply, that to go inside means to go to the self. And the self is ever peaceful. It has nothing to do with anger. From the feeling of the self comes the law of love, the law of union, the law of togetherness, which is totally contrary to anger. So how can we reach the self if we still harbor anger inside? That is the point that here must be made. And then on a very physical level also, or let's say on an energetic level, anger is also very much destroying our ojas. Ojas being a kind of condensed pranic energy, a storehouse of pranic energy, which we need for many things in life, but which we mostly also need in deep meditation when breathing is reduced to a very absolute minimum or even totally stops. At that moment, the body will use the ojas to generate prana and keep itself alive while we are no longer breathing. So ojas is a very subtle kind of energy, a very important kind of energy, but quite subtle, easily damaged. And then the fire of anger, the fire of violence, so easily burns that ojas away. My teacher Harish Johari there used to say that 1 minute of anger was enough to destroy the result of 1 year of meditation, with which he means that whatever of these subtle energies we have developed in ourselves, that these are going to be very easily destroyed if we let anger in. So anger, violence, these things just do not belong to the path of yoga. So if we still have a habit there, we need to work on it. Otherwise, how to evolve further? So your meditation will help you also with that. I have a whole class talking 2 hours about anger on YouTube. So if this is an issue for you, please work with it, and slowly you will overcome it. You will find different way to defend yourself and to be quite clear to people what you want, what you don't want, and will no longer need the anger to defend your boundaries, which is of course very important. If you do not defend your boundaries, then people will just start hurting you, and that's also certainly not the idea here. You have to be sufficiently assertive to be able to let go of anger. So if you are a little bit shy and not so easily defending yourself, then first you have to learn that, and then you can let go of the anger. So, and then the second of the Yamas is called Satya, truth. And this goes very much together with AHIMSA. As I said on anger, if you want to be able to let go of anger, you have to become very straightforward. You have to become assertive. You have to become clear. And also Mahatma Gandhi had actually these 2 weapons in his fight against the British: AHIMSA and Satya, non-violence and truth. He would always stick to the truth. He would always tell the British, okay, you are here, you are visitors. Why are you occupying our country? We are good enough, strong enough, smart enough to deal with our problems ourselves. We don't need you. Please go. Tell your queen. Okay, very nice, but let's go. And that way, he could advance. If we don't stick to the truth, if we compromise the truth, then we ourselves are getting entangled in all sort of nonsense, which do not bring us forward. So I don't think most of you are telling many lies. But there's a difference between a straight lie, let's say, and some little untruths we can permit to exist in whatever we are saying or doing. And then this mostly has to do with our ego stories. Our ego is a difficult thing, and we do not often like to see it as it is. We have difficulty to accept ourselves as we are. And then both to ourselves as to others, maybe we will bend the truth a little bit. We will make ourselves seem better or more important than we are. And that is something which is totally to be avoided if we want to be successful in our meditation for a number of reasons. The first thing is that whatever untruths we have been telling ourselves or others will eat up our self-confidence, because it will create a kind of expectation in others, as it will create also an expectation in ourselves, to which we are maybe not yet ready to meet it. So in that way, being true about who you are, where you stand, also, for example, in relation to your meditation practice, is very important. If you can sit for 2 hours, good, then you can sit for 2 hours. But don't say it's 3 hours, because, that will just destroy your self-confidence. So, very practical reason here why we need to stick to the truth is our self-confidence, which is based upon it. We can only be confident about what we are doing when we accept what is there, when we accept what we are able to do, and accept what we are unable to do, and don't have any kind of stories about that subject. And then, of course, in meditation, what are we seeking? We are seeking the truth. We are seeking to find the truth. So whatever untruth we are keeping alive will stop us from doing that. The true seeing of truth in its many aspects is a matter of buddhi, the cosmic intellect, which resides deep in our subconscious. But to be able to see clearly through this buddhi, we need to clear out the mess of untruths that we have been creating. So Satya is also not so easy. We have to be very watchful of what we are saying. And if you really don't want to say any untruth, maybe you better say nothing at all. Because everything which we say somehow or other is relative, and in that way also not totally true. The truth is beyond words. But okay, we cannot avoid saying some things, but at least we can try to make them as truthful as possible. So the key here really lies in accepting yourself as you are, accepting your practice where it is, accepting life as it is. And if you accept all these things as they are, then there will be no need to say anything untrue about them. So, and then the third of the yamas is ASTEYA, which literally means not stealing, being honest in our relationships with others. Now, this is also not so easy, because we are all in a way businessmen, because we have some kind of business exchange with the world, which brings us the things that we need, and in return for which we give other things or work or something like that. So we say business is business. So in that way, yes, we have to get paid properly for what we do. We have to pay a proper price for what we need. So that is quite normal part of life. But some people think business is business means that whatever I can take, I will take it. So that is where the difference is. How greedy are you in your relationships to others? Are you a taker, or are you a giver, or are you just a normal human being who likes to, be honest about these things and not take what is not yours? So that very much relates to the heart connection. In our heart, we know if we have been dishonest with others. Even if we tell stories about ourselves, telling that we have the right to do that, or that it wasn't dishonest at all, but we'll know in our heart. Now, that knowing will stop you from connecting to the heart. That knowing will stop you from centering here. So we've talked about it in the part on concentration. Not everybody needs to center here. Some people rather center there, or even in the navel area. But still, in any kind of practice, some bhakti is needed, some love is needed, some heart connection is needed. So if that is not there, then very difficult to enter any kind of deeper stages of meditation. Again, also for the same reasons, of course, because your dishonesty will come up in your meditation. Your fear maybe of being discovered, retaliation and things like that, they will disturb your meditation. So it is a different way in which you stand in life if you try to be honest in your dealings with people. It is a different way because it is a different attitude that you have towards karma. Karma is a difficult subject, of course, but the basic thing is that whatever you get, you deserve. And whatever you don't get, you don't deserve. So to take up that kind of responsibility for yourself, that you will be honest and not try to bypass karma, that is something which will bring you a lot of peace. That is something which will make it possible for you to like yourself. The truth is love. Dishonesty means that you are actually hurting others for your own greed. So you cannot connect to the heart. You cannot connect to the law of love. You cannot connect to yourself. You cannot love yourself if you feel that yourself you are dishonest. So that is the deeper meaning of ASTEYA. And they also say that the person who can do that, he has no worries anymore about karma. Whatever comes, it comes, and he will be satisfied with it. And he will not try to force it, not try to get more than what he deserves. So that then, they say, means that diamonds will be lying on the floor in front of him. He will be served by the universe. He will be taken care of by the universe. He will not have to be dishonest to get what he wants. The next of the yamas is APARIGRAHA. It literally means no possessions. But okay, nobody can do without some kind of possessions. So it mostly means that you are not attached to these possessions, that you not regard anything as being yours, that you do not appropriate anything, even apart from material things, that you do not appropriate any idea, not any teachings, that you understand that this concept of me and mine is essentially a wrong concept. So Maybe you have a house, maybe you have some car, some other things. So you can have these things, but the matter is how you look at them, how you feel about them, how attached you are to them. And if you feel you are not attached to them, then very good, but you might also want to a little bit test that feeling, because once you have to let go of it, it might be a little more difficult than you think. These attachments that we have to things are also very much on a subconscious level, and even on the level of the body, we will attach to certain things. So then, when you become a sadhu, most possessions are gone. Only the absolute minimum remains. Maybe 2 sets of clothes, 1 blanket, 1 water pot, things like that, maybe a mala. Huh? So they make sure in that way that there is not too much clutter hanging around us, because all these possessions, they also require time and work. We need to work to get them, but it also requires then time to maintain them, to upgrade them, to make sure they have the latest antivirus protection, all these things. It's a lot of work, a lot of time. So a sadhu makes this story quite simple by saying, okay, whatever I need, but all else I drop, so that it also does not bother me. No, it does not take my time, and I have more time for what I believe is more important. But then sometimes we can see that that sadhu is also very attached to those few things, maybe a mobile, that still belong to him. And so in that way we have to truly understand aparigraha, not so much as having to do with how many possessions you have, but what is your relationship to them. Do you see yourself as their temporary guardian or user, or do you see them yourself as um, you are the proprietor of these things, that you own these things? Nobody owns anything. When you die, what will you take with you? So everything which is here, it is nature, and it belongs to everybody. And you are just temporarily using something, temporarily taking care for something. That's all. And if you can live like that, then also the withdrawal inside will become more easy. As I said, the physical body also attaches to all those things. So to lose the connection to the physical body, to really go inside and no longer be aware of sitting there, also has to do with your possessions and how attached to them you are. The letting go of these, I would say, more superficial attachments truly means that your deeper attachments, the reasons for which you were born, will become more clear in your deeper meditation. Then again, from Buddhi, from the cosmic intellect, you will see much better what you have come here to do and what you truly desire, rather than all these superficial things which just make you often lose a lot of time. So if you need them for whatever it is you feel you want or have to do in this life, then okay, you use them in that way. But apart from them, be able to let them go and not get attached is the best way forward if you want to be able to truly withdraw inside and become more in tune with your soul, which actually lives beyond this life and has nothing to do with whatever you can find and gather and buy and store in this life. So to get a little bit rid of the material world is advisable, but everybody again should decide for themselves. And let's say if you have kids, then you need some accommodation, no? So that they can be comfortably and properly raised. So that is definitely then very logical to have, and nothing wrong. Only you have to see in your heart how much you attach to them. No? Is your car something which helps you to go from one place to another, or is your car part of your identity? No? Do you feel when driving that it's looking good? No? So these things you have to a little bit watch, so that you are a little bit letting things be things and not making anything more out of them. So, and then the last, but not the least, of the yamas is called Brahmacharya, which is generally translated as sexual abstinence, but that is really not truly the original meaning of Brahmacharya. It means more to be moderated in the senses, moderated in our enjoyment of the senses, so that we can dance in Brahma, which means that we can live primarily from the feeling of the self, which is really the true meaning of Brahmacharya. Brahma is the boss, you can say, in Brahmacharya. So whatever pleasure, whatever good feeling that we seek from the outside, from the senses, actually withdraws our attention from the very good feeling that comes from the self. So in that way also blocks it. We've talked about it in the class on the senses, of course, where in Pratyahara, the fifth limb of Ashtanga Yoga, where we want to turn inside, it is very important that during the day our engagement with the senses is moderate, so that they are a little bit less active, a little bit less demanding, and more easy to basically shut down, no? To basically no more looking, no more listening, no more sensing, outside, and to go inside. So moderation in consumption of all kinds of food, of media, of music, of all these things is important, so that our senses are calm and easily turned inward, and that also during the day we are not so much focused on getting this sensory gratification, but try to find our good feeling, our gratification in the heart. And then sex is one part of that, of course, but then that also has a lot to do with our energy. And in general, we can say that sensory enjoyment, and especially then sexual enjoyment, is quite a consumer of energy, and especially then in the case of sex, is quite a consumer of ojas again, this storehouse of pure prana, this storehouse of our life force. So there, yes, it is clear that once you start playing around, let's say, with deep meditation, with samadhi, once you start experiencing that you have been, let's say, gone and unaware of where you are sitting for some time, once you start experiencing that you have been meditating for a very long time, but it feels like a very short time. It feels like 5 minutes, but it was half an hour. It feels like 10 minutes, but it was 2 hours. So once you start having that, then definitely there is very good reason to go for sexual abstinence for some time, so that your ojas can be used fully for helping you, keeping you alive in your deep meditation, so that there you will not be brought out of this state by lack of prana in your system, by lack of life force, because you have been exhausting yourself in sexual energy. Sexual energy is tejas, and tejas is generated from ojas. So the more tejas you have to produce, the less ojas you will have. And the younger you are, the less of a problem this is. But the older you get, the more you have to take into account that ojas anyhow is a little bit less. No? Your radiance, your life force is becoming a little bit less. So you have to be a little more moderate in these things. But I would say as long as you are not yet ready to reach deep meditation, then just be moderate in whatever sensual or sexual enjoyment you have. That will be very useful. And then once you start entering deep meditation, then maybe it is a time to a little bit say goodbye to the senses in a more definite form and be fully focused inside. Sexual abstinence also has another aspect as a kind of a sacrifice. We will talk about it when we talk about the getting of spiritual help in meditation. That will come in one of the later classes. But so there definitely to offer up one's sexual energy is a very potent way, a very powerful way to get more help and more support. And that again becomes then very important in deep meditation. So Brahmacharya is mostly about finding your enjoyment in the self rather than outside of you. And in the later stages of meditation, then it might become a little bit more something strict for a while. Not as a morality, not because sex is bad or something like that, sinful or whatever. These things have absolutely nothing to do with it. It's just again a very technical reason why at some point it is good to abstain from these things. So now that we have done the Yamas, we can talk a little bit also about the Niyamas, things that we have to or can bring alive in our lives. And is actually in a way more important than the Yamas. Very often when we think about ourselves, when we want to improve ourselves, we think about the things that we should stop, that we should get under control. And I'm not saying that is not needed, but the first thing which is always needed is to do something positive. If we are not so satisfied with ourselves or our lives, to bring something positive in. And then automatically, whatever is a little bit negative will become less. So Yamas are very important, and they are all actions that help us to focus more on the self, to be more in tune and in harmony with the truth and the feeling of the self. And that definitely is clear for Santosha, the first of the Niyamas, which means contentment. Another of my teachers, Mataji, she used to say, contentment, Santosha, is self-sufficiency. That means that the self is sufficient for you. Self-sufficiency, usually people interpret it as that you are able to take care of yourself. And that is also an important property. But Santosha really means that you do not rely on anything else but the self for your feeling good. So contentment means a kind of equanimity in which you drop the game of like and dislike. This is a game in which we are caught quite naturally by mind and of course also by the ego because of its earlier identifications. It has a tendency to weigh everything that it meets against these identifications, and from there say, oh, I like this. Oh, no, I don't like that. So Santosha means that we are contented whatever happens. This is in a way the end objective of yoga also. So don't be dissatisfied with yourself when you cannot be content all the time. This will slowly again grow. But it is a very good practice, and I say this in many of my classes. Whenever you feel unhappy, before you do anything else, first try to again feel happy. Do whatever you can do. Do whatever works for you to bring you closer in connection with the self, closer in connection with the feeling of the self, which is ananda, which is bliss. And then from this bliss, from this good feeling, again go forward. React upon whatever is happening. Try to solve whatever problem is there and cause the unhappiness. But first of all, drop the unhappiness, go to happiness, and from there move forward. That way, your actions will be the most pure and will have the best possible result. That means also, not in the least actually, that santosha is a feeling we have to create at the beginning of every meditation. To meditate from a feeling of dissatisfaction is never going to work. So, when we start our meditation, this is part of this intention process. We let go of everything else. We let go of all our projects. We let go of all our problems. But we also let go of any dissatisfaction. And we first of all create a little smile, a little happiness inside. And from there we start to meditate. The second of the Niyamas is called SHAUCHA. This means purification. Now, purification has many aspects. It starts with keeping the body clean, keeping our clothes clean, eating healthy food, taking good care, basically, of the temple that is our body. And just like in a temple, spiritual things can happen in the most positive way if the temple itself is clean and well organized. Then also the spiritual process in ourselves will happen the most easily if in our body everything is well organized. This will have many effects, and especially, of course, the turning inside, the leaving of the body consciousness will be the most easy if the body feels comfortable and there is no pain or any other discomfort in the body that is making us restless and makes it more difficult to let go of body consciousness. So purification involves a lot of Ayurveda, knowing how to cook, knowing how to massage the body, knowing how to deal with any problem in the body, small home remedies for which we don't really need a doctor and can deal with it ourselves, so that every day our meditation can happen in a good fashion because our body feels all right. This will also have a lot of effect, for example, on our need for sensory input. A lot of need for sensory input is actually because of its pain-killing effect. That is well known. That a lot of things like sweets, but even nice music, nice smells, and so on, produce endorphins and other neurotransmitters in our body, which are actually also painkillers. So a lot of our desire for sensory input has to do with discomfort in the body. So if we make the body more healthy, if we make it more comfortable, then automatically our need for sensory input will become less. So it's not only about keeping our body clean and healthy, it's also about our environment, our house, to avoid any bad smells, to avoid any unnecessarily cluttered sites, to have everything in order, in the proper way. It gives a kind of peace, which is also very suitable for meditation. So then the third of the Niyamas is Tapasya, which literally means discipline or burning, putting yourself on the barbecue, looking for any weaknesses and burning them away through discipline. That is the true meaning of Tapasya. So whatever weaknesses you have, whatever strong attachments you have, whatever addictions are there, they are making you weak. They are reducing your self-love. They are reducing your self-confidence. So to get rid of them is a matter of building up self-confidence and willpower, which is very much required in the whole process of meditation. Meditation really is not easy. This mental workout that we are doing here is not easy. It requires willpower, it requires strength. So also outside of your meditation, you can be involved in developing more strength inside yourself. So tapasya can take many forms, and one of the most common forms is vrat, which means to fast. Whichever addiction you have, whichever strong attachment you have, in fasting you temporarily abstain from it. And that gives you willpower and control over this attachment. So if you know that you're having too much chocolate, there's a very easy solution. Just stop eating chocolate for, let's say, 1 month. Then afterwards you can again eat chocolate, but at that moment you will have more of a restraint and you will be able to eat the amount of chocolate that you think is okay to eat and not eat more than that. So whatever addiction you have in that way, you try to abstain from it from a while. A kind of forceful detachment is then needed to really make a change inside yourself. So many tapasyas are like that. Some, as we discussed in the part on the senses, also have to do with pain, because pain is an issue in the whole process of meditation also. So while we can reduce the pain and remove the pain and, through proper body posture, get rid of this pain, some pain may always remain. So we need to be able to forcefully detach from that. And in that way then, especially sadhus are going to sit on a bed of nails or are going to stand on one leg for hours and hours and hours and hours, which is a very painful thing. I've tried. Or do any kind of other thing which is painful, so that they become a master of pain and can really withdraw from it when needed. So tapasya is needed, and even in deeper meditation is not so much needed to combat pain, but rather to combat sleep. The main problem when we start entering deep meditation is that instead of entering deep meditation, we fall asleep. So this requires a certain strength of wanting to stay awake, of keeping the focus on whatever is the object of our meditation. So whatever we can do during the day that is a little bit hard, that is a little bit pushing us, to move beyond our usual limitations, is very good, because it will strengthen our power to also go into deep meditation. So then the fourth niyama to more develop in our lives is SVADHYAYA. SVADHYAYA means self-study. So it is about reading books, listening to lectures, but most of all about studying yourself. in all its aspects, studying your mind, studying your body, studying your intellect, studying your ego, and especially that one then becomes the true self-study as vichara, to answer the question, who am I? And to become aware not only of the gross manifestations of the ego, but also of its more subtle manifestations, which are in a way much more important, precisely because we do not have the habit of very much questioning them. And to dethrone the ego, to truly always move our identification from the ego to the self is what this practice is about. So this is something ongoing that can be very important, so that questions that you have are truly answered. Many teachers these days, they seem to say that, oh, you don't need to understand because the truth is beyond understanding. And that is of course very true. But still some understanding you need, otherwise the questions will keep coming. Otherwise confusion will always be there, and otherwise, especially in your meditation, certain insights will come and generate a whole train of thoughts. I think everybody has that experience, which are actually not necessary once you have a clear understanding of these aspects of yourself. So to study is important, and I think you are all doing that quite a lot. However, I like to point out that in the more traditional way, this study, when it had to do with books or texts, let's say, had a lot to do with memorizing these texts. Nowadays, people are very much seeking the truth in 100,000 different directions. That makes it again much more confusing. I'm not saying it is not good to look a little bit at different points of view from different traditions, from Hinduism, but also from Buddhism, from Christianity, from any other kind of tradition. This is all very interesting. But at some point, you have to come to a clear understanding with which you can work. Anyhow, these are just concepts. If you want to divide your whole being into 5 different bodies or into 6 different bodies, who cares? But don't remain confused about it. Pick your choice, see what you feel is most appropriate, and in this way, have some kind of set of concepts with which you can work whenever you are thinking, so that it becomes more easy to actually stop thinking. So then that in which you believe, that which you feel is really your truth, then that should be somehow or other memorized. It should be studied, repeated to such an extent that it is totally clear, that there is no doubt about it, and that very easily this information, let's say, comes to your mind whenever you need it. So in that way, the work of reading a book several times is really good. I remember listening to tapes of Harish Johari, my first teacher, so many times. Same story again and again and again, until I could almost from memory recite his teachings, and in that way those teachings would also really be available for me whenever some question would pop up in my mind or in my life, and then very easily, the answer, it comes. So the work of then, when you have find some kind of understanding that really seems clear and logical and valuable and useful to you, the work then to fully study it, to fully absorb it, to maybe yourself write about it, to transcribe my videos or any other videos that you have seen and which are really valuable for you, is very, very good practice, because by transcribing you also have better memory of it, becomes visual in your mind, and in that way it will really, really become yours. So that is something important to add to this aspect of self-study, do not always be on the lookout for any kind of new insight, any kind of new division of reality, let's say. But when you have found something which works for you, then stick to that, and that's all you need, because the truth really is beyond thinking. So the only thing you need are some ready answers to answer any questions, so that that thinking process does not need to require so much time, and you can move beyond thinking towards real meditation. So then the last of the niyamas is maybe also the most difficult. It's called Ishvara Pranidhana, and it means to surrender to your chosen form of the divine. Why is this so important? It relates to all kinds of practices which are usually seen as a little bit religious, bhakti yoga, that also outside of your meditation, you are emotionally from your heart involved with this chosen form of the divine, and that you are surrendering whatever it is that you are doing to this form. So why is it important? To go into deep meditation means to give up all control. For that you need trust. You need to trust that when you give up control, that when you sink into your subconscious, that which you will meet there will take care of you. Because you are no longer taking care of you. You are just floating on the ocean, let's say, of your subconscious, and that really requires quite a deal of trust, which needs to be exercised also outside of your meditation. Which means that in your life, you have to also a little bit give up this kind of doership. You have to be able to give up the result of your actions. You have to be able to give up the result of your yoga even. Whatever you are doing in your yoga, in your meditation, is finally not up to you. You can only do that much as, to be concentrated in meditation. But then slowly, slowly you have to let that heart concentration go and just keep that form of the divine which you have chosen, whether it is in the pure being, or it is Ganesha, or it is Shiva, or it is Kali, or Jesus, or whichever it is. But you really have to trust that thing, because you are actually leaving everything up to that thing. And that thing, that object of your meditation, is also that which will bring you in the end to the self, which will bring you through the veils that exist within deep meditation, where you don't know where you are, where you don't know where to go. And that is, your vehicle, your train, your airplane that will bring you there. So you have to trust your airplane. If you don't trust the airplane, how can you fly? So that is really maybe a little difficult for us now, because we have so much problem with the whole idea of religion, because it has been abused so much. But it actually has nothing to do with that. We each have this freedom to choose which form of the divine we like, which form of the divine represents how we feel about the divine. So nobody is there directing you, nobody is there controlling you, nobody is there telling you what to do. You just pick your own form and you feel love towards it. And in love, you also surrender to it. You start driving your car with the eyes closed. You leave everything up to the divine to guide you wherever you need to go. It's a very different attitude towards everything in life. We are so much control freaks, you have no idea. We want to have everything under control, and that is also in a way a little bit natural. We need to make use of, whatever God is bringing us. But still, in the end, it is not our responsibility even. It is just surrendering and letting go. And when we will talk about spiritual help, this is going to be a very essential attitude that is required in order to get it. Because as long as we are still feeling that we are in control and we are the ones going to do it, then how can you get any help? Because anyhow you're going to do it yourself. So it's only if you really can give up that doership and say, oh, please help me, please guide me, please bring me there to that divine, that it can actually happen. Otherwise, yes, you can do it by yourself, alone, based on your willpower only, but that will not really bring you to the end. So that is why Patanjali also rightly identifies devotion, surrender towards your chosen form of the divine as essential. So each of you needs to somehow pick what is called Ishtadeva. Ishtadeva means the personal form of the divine. You can, next to that, still adore any other form of the divine. Anyhow, they are all one. But one form has to be number one. One form has to be the one to which you really trust your destiny, trust your practice, trust your meditation, whom you really trust to bring you where you want to go. So now we've had an overview of the 5 Yamas and the 5 Niyamas. And there are other Yamas and Niyamas actually known in different yoga traditions. And I was a little bit doubting whether I should talk about it or not. But I think better not to confuse people, and let's stick to these 2 sets of 5, because anyhow all these others are quite related to it, are quite, just aspects of it. And I think it's more easy to stay with these 10 in total to work with. And that is also why I would like to ask you for this week's exercise. Apart from the meditation, you will find in the home resources an overview of the Yamas and Niyamas in a table, and there you might mark in the table where maybe in your life there are some areas of improvement, and try to reach some decisions during this week regarding those things. Make a few changes, not too many, I mean maybe just 1 or 2, so that you are moving a little bit a step forward there. No? It is totally up to you. And again, please do not feel this as any kind of moral obligation. Just see where you are ready for some improvement in how you deal with things. So apart from that, the meditation practice is still a little bit same like last week. You have the choice between those 3 paths, jnana, bhakti, and karma yoga. As it was in last week, I suggest you stick to one of those only. And the change that I have made is that I have made the practice a little bit more condensed. So I am leaving out any kind of singing of mantra or any kind of connection of Soham, for example, with the breathing, and just move immediately into a more inner kind of meditation where you are purely working with the mantra or Sarve Bhavantu or Soham in combination, if you like, if you feel you need, with some kind of visualization, but then also later on during the practice, when you feel your concentration is good, to drop the visualization and continue with a rather simple object, which is just the mantra Sarve Bhavantu or Soham, silently recited inside. So I hope you all enjoyed the class. Thanks for being there. Thanks for the donations. And thanks for being there also on the Q&A session, where you can ask your questions, whether they are about this class or any other aspect of yoga and spirituality. I think we can a little bit open it up now to whatever question you may have in that moment, so that we can have a real nice exchange of views and conversation and togetherness. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you.